Good morning. I'm Jeff Hammond, Executive Director at International Ground Source Heat Pump Association. Thank you for joining us for the IGSPA Dig Deeper webinar in February. We thank LoopTech Geothermal as our sponsor. LoopTech is our diamond sponsor of the conference, and one of the benefits of being a diamond sponsor was having a number of Dig Deeper and Town Hall webinar sponsorships. So we thank LoopTech for sponsoring us today. Before we get started, I have just a few updates so that you can hear the latest news on IGSPA, and then I'll turn it over to our panelists. So if you would like to present at one of these Town Hall or Dig Deeper webinars, just go to igspa.org and click on Training and Events. We do still have some slots open. If you'll submit your abstract, then we'll take a look at that, and hopefully you'll be able to present at a future webinar. Also, we're accepting advertisements for these webinars. It's a great way to get your name out there. And since these are recorded, that logo stays as part of the recording. So you'll get recognition even with people watching the recording later on. Our conference is coming up in just under 2 weeks now. It's actually about a week and a half. It's in Champaign, Illinois, and we're working with Geothermal Alliance of Illinois. We're expecting a really good conference. Registrations look great, and it is still time to register. The hotel room block is full, but there are other hotels in the area. You'll find our conference program guide online, as well as the agenda. A lot of presentations, 8 tracks, and more exhibitors than we've had in quite some time. So if you haven't decided, take a look at igspa.org and get all the details. These are our sponsors for the conference. We certainly could not do the conference without our sponsors. And so we thank everyone from our diamond through all the other sponsor types. This really makes that conference possible. When you arrive at the conference, you'll find an exhibit hall, and this is open all 3 days. It is completely full. You can see the variety of exhibitors, so there'll be a lot of good conversations, I think, in the exhibit hall. In addition to the exhibit hall, we also have tables in the lobby area, and we have an area sectioned off for heavy equipment. So you'll see some drill rigs and other heavy equipment out in the parking lot, and those vendors will have tables in the lobby. So again, a lot of opportunity for good exchange of information at the conference. Our Geo Outlook magazine is back. It started republishing in September of 2023, and our last issue was in January. The next issue is July. If you're not receiving the Geo Outlook magazine, let us know. We have had some issues with security settings, and some people's email is not going through. So just send us a note at info@igspa.org if you're not receiving that magazine. We are accepting articles as well as advertisements for the July issue, and it's quite a large reach. Not only does it go to the IGSPA audience, but also to BNP Media audience, Engineered Systems, and ACHR News. So it's over 50,000 is the reach for this magazine. We have some new databases online. We would love your help in populating those databases. One of them is on applications that are already out there, jobs that are installed, and the other one is licensing and CE requirements. So if you have information on that, you're certainly the local experts. We would love to have your help here. If you're looking for CEUs for your certification, just simply put your name and email address in the chat or Q&A, and we will record those. When you log on to the member portal, then you'll see those hours show up. There's also a new option for obtaining those CEUs for your recertification information. All you need to do if you're watching this as a recording is supply this code. If you happen to be on live today, you don't need this code. Just put in your email and your name. But if you're watching this as a recording, you will need this code in order to get those CEUs. And just a little bit of housekeeping. We do have 4 speakers today. So if you would, please put your questions in the chat or in the Q&A, and I will read those questions once all the speakers are finished. This will be recorded, and you'll be able to watch our webinar later on, probably the beginning of the week. Just a little bit more housekeeping here. We have had some challenges with security settings. So if you can't access the chat, you most likely can access the Q&A. If you can't access the Q&A, then raise your hand and I'll unmute your microphone. Sometimes you'll get a screen that looks like this over here on the right. And if you click OK, that allows you to participate in the chat. So questions will be read once the speakers are finished. A quick disclaimer, and then we'll be ready to get started. The upcoming presentation represents the opinion of the presenters, in this case the panelists, and does not represent any official position, opinion, or endorsement of any products or services by IGSPA or its members. IGSPA town halls and Dig Deeper webinars are for member updates and education on the latest information in the geothermal heat pump industry and are not meant to endorse one technology or brand over another. It is the panelists or presenters' responsibility to disclose any conflict of interest or position that may arise in the content of the webinar. So once again, we thank LoopTech for their sponsorship of this webinar. Thank you very much. And Jeremiah, whenever you would like to share your screen, feel free.
All right.
And our first speaker is Jeremiah Strode of GEO Exchange. Each person will be introducing themselves when they speak. We have Chad Brezynskie from Ontario Geothermal Association, Kevin Dubeau from Association Géothermie Québec, and we have Christine Hoffer from NY-GEO. So thanks so much for joining us. We have a lot of really good information about programs on a state and province level. So it's all yours, Jeremiah.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate everybody showing up today. We're going to have a lot of good information. Just a little bit more background on myself. I am with the Geothermal Exchange Organization. I'm the Director of Cooperative Engagement. That means they brought me in to work with the rural electric cooperatives around the nation to help promote their geothermal incentive programs. Something we're going to kind of touch on today just briefly. I actually worked with a co-op for about 12 years in the member services department, heavily involved with ground source heat pump incentive programs. Had a little stint in the solar installation industry, the power generation side of utilities. So I've got a little bit of a background, real heavily involved with the utility side of things. But today we're going to talk about incentives. I'm going to cover something that's a little bit more broad, more nationwide. I'm going to briefly, and I'm going to say very briefly, talk about the Inflation Reduction Act incentives that are out there. It's going to be more of a reminder. So if anybody wants more information in more detail afterwards, please don't hesitate to reach out to me and or someone from the Geothermal Exchange, and we can definitely get you some more information. And then I'm going to talk just a little bit again about utilities. And again, this is a broad scope. They're everywhere. Whether you're in the States or in Canada, there are all kinds of programs out there, and I'll let the others dig a little bit deeper into their local regions. So all right, so to get started here. So the Inflation Reduction Act, as you all know, came into effect in 2022. We're a couple years into it. Hopefully it goes till 2032 at full value and then phase itself down and be gone by 2035. But I thought I'd at least give a reminder of what is available that you should be taking advantage of right now. Probably the most widely known one is the one involving residential clean energy credit, or for your single family residences at home. This is in Section 25D, and this is that 30% tax credit. So this is a pretty significant incentive that you can add on to other programs out there and get a little bit of your federal income tax money back from the government. So again, this is a 30% tax credit that goes till 2032. Now, along with the tax credit, there are other programs out there that are available for the residential market. And the ones I want to kind of talk about just briefly again is the IRA funded state rebate programs. This is a program that the IRA is putting money towards, allocating money towards each state in the U.S. But the state is involved with creating their own program, implementing that program, and managing it. And the two that I'm talking about, the first is the Home Energy Performance-Based Whole House Rebate Program, or it's also known as HOMES, even though the acronym doesn't match. This is a performance-based rebate program for any kind of tax bracket. And again, it's a retrofit program meant to make improvements on a home. The next one is called the High Efficiency Electric Home Rebate Program. This one is kind of an income dependent. It's meant more for moderate to low income brackets. You know, it's you do the upgrade, you get the money kind of program. Now, the thing about these is there's only probably about 10 states, I believe, that have active programs right now. All the states have technically been allocated the funds and technically given the funds, but most have not even submitted their programs to the Department of Energy. So you'll just have to see what's going on in your state, and I'm happy to assist anybody if they've got questions on that, and we'll see what we can do to find out some answers for you. Moving away from the residential side, we get into the commercial side of things, and we'll start with home builders, people doing spec homes or subdivisions, multifamily dwellings. There's what's called the New Energy Efficient Home Credit. This is in Section 45L. Basically, it's encouraging builders to make improvements to their builds to make them more energy efficient. If they can reach Energy Star standards, they can get a $2,500 tax credit. If they go even a step further and do a zero energy ready home, we're looking at about a $5,000 tax credit. This also works for multifamily homes. They can get a pretty significant amount of cash back as a tax credit, especially if they're using prevailing wage on a job. So there's a lot of little details you can look into and really encourage your local home builders to participate. Now, the one area that really got some major changes with the IRA was the commercial side, and this was through the Commercial Investment Tax Credit, Section 48. Prior to the IRA, there was about a 10% tax credit available. I know some people were taking advantage of it, but they made some significant changes. They basically took that 10% and gave the ability to get up to 50% tax credit back. The way they did that is there's a number of bonuses that you have to see if you're eligible for. First one's a size of the project limitation. It has to be under 284 tons. Or if you're over that, you have to be using prevailing wage. That gets it up to 30%. You have a second bonus called domestic content, and then a third bonus called an energy community, which is basically if you're in a certain geographical location. The second two bonuses can add another 10% onto that project. So there's a pretty significant amount of money available in the form of a tax credit to these commercial entities if they take the time to look at it and see what's available. I will say the domestic content is probably something that's still a little bit in limbo. I would definitely not completely discount it, but I wouldn't rely on it at the moment until they can get some things squared away with the IRS and basically on how to verify that it is domestically sourced without having to divulge proprietary information. So there's a few things going on with that, but at a minimum, 30% is likely to be met on most projects. Some of the other things involved with the Inflation Reduction Act, one thing was, prior to the IRA, it was only taxable entities that could take advantage of these tax credits. Of course, you have to have a tax burden. It makes sense. Well, they wanted to try to include as many people as possible in this next round of credits. And that gave the ability for tax-exempt organizations to take advantage of these funds. We're talking like schools and churches, municipal buildings such as libraries and police stations, fire departments, things like that. Rural electric cooperatives were specifically named in there. Well, they can file for these program funds, but instead of a tax credit, they're going to file for it as a direct payment. So that's kind of opening up a whole nother area of people that never could take advantage of this funding before. As far as that's what the tax credits cover. And then we also have what's called the energy efficient commercial buildings deduction. This is in section 179D, and this is a tax deduction that can go alongside those tax credits. Similar to the homes program, this is a performance-based tax deduction. So you have to model your upgrades and compare it to a baseline reference to see if you're eligible. And if you do meet that eligibility, it's paid out based on the square footage of the facility. So if we're talking a larger footprint, like a factory floor, warehouse, large square footage office complex, whatever it may be, you can talk, you're talking some serious money as far as a tax deduction goes. Tax exempt organizations are allowed to use this funding as well. they would just pass that tax deduction on to a taxable entity. And the last program I want to talk about briefly, and again, I'm just going over the highlights of these things. It's called the Rural Energy for America program, or more commonly known as REAP. This is a program through the USDA. It's a 50% cost share, used to be 25%, but a 50% cost share grant or loan program that is intended to encourage the adoption of renewables on site or to increase the efficiency of the facility in some fashion, whether that's the building envelope, the heating and cooling system, equipment upgrades such as pumps and motors, whatever that may be. You can get a 50% grant on that. It's a pretty significant amount of money, and each state's been allocated a certain amount of funds, and generally you have about 4 times per year you could submit your project. So it's a wonderful program as long as you're in the rural area. That's the other thing about it. You have to be in an area with a population density of 50,000 or less. So it's not meant for the urban setting, but more for the rural communities. And then last but not least, we have the fact that geothermal technology is eligible for a 5-year accelerated depreciation. There's actually been a one-time bonus depreciation along with the IRA that I believe is at 40% right now, and it goes down every year and it's supposed to be gone by 2027. So there's a lot available out there through the IRA. All these are stackable. So in theory, if you have a project out there, at least on the commercial side, and you are eligible for every single incentive, you could almost have a project completely paid for just through these incentives out there. Now, the question a lot of people probably want to ask, what's going to happen to the Inflation Reduction Act? There's a lot of things going on with the administration change. A lot of programs are being reviewed and reduced in size, if not completely removed. We had some updates recently. You may be aware the House passed a budget blueprint, which is the first step in the reconciliation process for possibly removing certain programs. Again, this is just the first step. They haven't named anything yet, but they have named a number of categories that they're wanting to make reductions in. And sadly, we are included in some of those categories. And it is a very possible scenario that it could pass because it could pass on partisan lines alone. So this isn't trying to scare anybody, but I'm just trying to update everybody on what's going on. But, one little bit of icing on the cake there is, well, I guess you could say this, but government funding runs out March 14th. That always calls for negotiations. So that could be something that could have an impact on how the funds are being cut from certain programs. So past that, we really don't know anything else. It's kind of up in the air. I just want to point out that Geo Exchange and other industry stakeholders are working tirelessly to try to keep our incentives alive. The technology itself can stand on its own. We all know that. But we are not much as far as a market share out there, and any kind of incentives can really help us get a boost in increasing that market share. So we're working very hard to make that happen, working very hard to keep these provisions in play, and we will try to keep you updated as much as we can on that subject. Now, the last thing I want to touch on, again, this is a broad, just kind of a broad topic because there's utilities everywhere, whether you're in the U.S., whether you're in Canada. A lot of these utilities have geothermal incentive programs, and I'm talking about rural electric cooperatives. I'm talking about investor-owned utilities. You've got cities that have electrical municipals, and there are programs all over the place. My job every day is to reach out to these rural electric cooperatives and assist them in their programs. There's over 900, well, close to 900 electrical cooperatives in the States, and quite a few investor-owned. I don't have a number off the top of my head for that, but you could see anything between $300 to $1,600 per ton, through the cooperatives, or you can see flat rates, so much per unit, or there are rates, heat pump rates for having one in your home. I mean, all kinds of programs. There's some other really unique programs out there. We always like to point out CK Energy from Oklahoma. CK decided to basically purchase the loop for their membership. They know the value to the utility, and they realize they're going to get that payback fairly quick. So lots of programs out there, but you have to look them up. And I always encourage anybody out there, if you haven't made any kind of built any kind of relationships with your local utility, it's probably in your best interest to just to learn what programs they have available and what their restrictions could possibly be. So again, if you want any more details on this, I'm happy to share more with you. But I'm going to go ahead and pass this over so we can get down into the more local levels. And I'm going to pass it to Chad, and he can take over from here.
Great. Thanks, Jeremiah, for that. My name is Chad Brezynskie. I'm from GeoSmart Energy. We're a distributor of ground source heat pumps in Canada and the US. I also sit on the board with the Ontario Geothermal Association as the treasurer on the board, and just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the programs that we have here in Ontario at the moment. Just gonna share my screen here. Hopefully everyone can see that properly. So the Home Renovation Savings Program was recently launched in Ontario. It specifically addresses the residential heat pump market here in Ontario. Eligible owners or eligible homeowners in Ontario would be able to receive rebates for various different incentives that help increase the overall efficiency of the home and comfort, their own comfort. Ground source heat pumps happen to be one of the many products that are available for incentive in the program, and that's really all I'm going to talk about today. So for program eligibility, there's a few things that you have to consider. One is certainly that you have to be connected to the Ontario electricity grid in order to be qualified for the program, or be an Enbridge gas customer who heats their home with natural gas currently. You must own the home where the heat pump's going to be installed. And if you don't own the home and you rent or you're a tenant to the home, the eligibility would be in regards to the owner of that property. So it must be a single detached, semi-detached, or row house, townhome, mobile homes, and must be on a permanent foundation. New home construction is not part of this program here right now. That might change at some point, but at the moment it's a retrofit program. You must be first-time installation of a heat pump system in the home, so there's no re, so to speak. So if you have an air source heat pump right now, you can't retrofit with a ground source heat pump and get a grant. You can't have an existing ground source heat pump and replace that with a new heat pump. You wouldn't qualify for the grant. As far as the equipment eligibility for ground source heat pumps, there is a list that currently the program is referencing. That's Natural Resources Canada Qualified Products List. So if your geothermal heat pump system is listed on that list as we speak right now, then it would qualify for the program. At the moment right now, water-to-water heat pumps, for example, are not on that list. So any water-to-water heat pump systems would not be part of that program. The OGA is working very hard and diligently with the ISO to try and change that. And we believe earlier this week we had a meeting with them. We believe that we made some good progress to getting that done. The NRCan list of qualified products, that comes from the AHRI database of certified products. So that's really where that's coming from as well. The heat pumps also, they must be able to distribute heat through the entire home. They must be capable of operating year-round, which of course geothermal always is. And the installation must also include all the components of the system. So it's a full loop installation and geothermal equipment inside the space as well. As far as contractor eligibility goes, you must apply to become a contractor and be listed on the eligible contractors list for the program. You'll get approval in writing once you've completed that process, and you'll be listed as a contractor for installing ground source heat pumps as part of that program. Eligible payment options. So this is in regards to whether or not you're purchasing that system with your own money up front, whether you're financing the system or say rental or leasing. And at this time right now, in order to be eligible for the program, you have to be purchasing that system. So there'll be some future consideration if you are leasing or renting that equipment or lease to own, but that'll be coming sometime down the road at a later date. The other notable thing I think about the program is that it's not stackable whatsoever. So you can only receive one incentive. So if you're applying or receiving incentives for any other programs, federally, municipally, provincially, any other programs for a ground source heat pump installation, then you wouldn't qualify for this program. So it's not a stackable incentive at all. The incentive amounts are basically if you're a customer that's heating with that's connected to the Enbridge gas network and you're heating with natural gas, you would have a flat rate $3,000 incentive for putting in a ground source heat pump system. And if you're an electrically heated home installing ground source, you would be $2,000 per ton with a cap of $12,000. As far as training is concerned, contractors installing ground source heat pumps would have to hold a valid IGSPA certification in order to install. You'd have to have proper insurance coverage, obviously, and taken technical training with whatever product brand that you're representing as well. The application process. So basically there's a pre-installation that happens. There's the heat pump installation and then a post application after the installation. In the pre-installation application, you'd have the participant agreement, a copy of the work order, quote, or estimate for the project, some photos of the existing equipment that's in place right now, and any other additional project information that'll be required. Post-installation, you'd be supplying copies of the final paid invoices, photos of the installed heat pump system, and any additional project information that they're requiring at the time. So next steps, basically, if you wanted to learn more about the program, you can go to homerenovationsavings.ca. If you're a contractor and you wanted to ask more questions to their program directly, you can email contractors@homerenovationsavings.ca. So with that, I am going to turn this over to Kevin.
Thank you, Chad. Hi, my name is Kevin. I'm an engineer at the Direction 360, sorry. I'm the president of the board of the AGQ, which is Association Géothermie Québec. Please excuse my English. French is my mother tongue. So I learned my English watching The Simpsons and The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So probably when we'll get to the 51st states of the United States, I'll have a better English, but for now, this is what you get. I'll try to share my my screen here. All right. Is everyone looking? Is it looking good? Yeah. All right. So first, for the residential grants, Hydro-Québec has a program named Logivert. Hydro-Québec is a utility provider for all over the province. They give $750 per 1,000 BTUs of heating for projects of 19 units or less. So it can be multi-residential or a single house. So for example, if you have a 12 kilowatt, which is a little more than 40,000 BTUs, you'll get $30,000, $30,770 for this project. Actually, the maximum allowance you can get is close to $200,000, but this cap is gonna be lowered to $54,000 in a couple of months. So we invite our big clients to be ready to cut their incentives if they don't install before the end of August. There are also grants for commercial, still Hydro-Quebec. There's efficient solution program and the energy analysis. This helps our people like us, engineers, help our clients to choose between different options. Normally, we try to help them to convert to geothermal. So it covers 100% of our professional fees, which is up to $50,000, which is very interesting. So 40% of the total cost is covered when we first do the analysis, and the rest of the 60% is given when the measures are implemented. There are also grants from Transition Énergétique Québec, which is a program that helps companies or commercial or industrial companies to get rid of gas, oil, or other combustibles, and they cover a maximum of 50% or 70% of the analysis for these conversions. We'll get to the installation grants here. Hydro-Quebec, still with Efficient Solution Program, gives about 5,700 per ton installed for existing buildings, and close to 5,000 per ton for new buildings. There are also custom offer, but I won't talk about this because it's a little complicated, and it's for really specific projects, like when you have people having an excess of heat and giving it to another company or another building. Oh, okay. Hydro-Quebec has also an innovative project program, which is for very big projects. It's more than 500,000 square feet projects. So we won't talk about this right here, but there are also, with the Transition Énergétique Québec, is a Eco-Performance program, which is giving $1,250 per green gas ton of green gas that are not emitted. So for if you have a new project that would be possible to be plugged to the gas, and the client doesn't choose to the gas and installs like geothermal system, it will get that grant. It normally covers, it's the cap, that's the maximum the project can be granted. It's 75% of the total cost for industrial, commercial, and institutional. There are also tax credits. You can reach 30% of the investment in eligible assets that are acquired to become ready for service on after March 28, 2023 to 2034. And this credit is applied when you install geothermal systems. Also, on the provincial side, it can vary from 20% to 40%. It's depending on the geographical place in the province. If you're in a good economic vitality territory, it's not the same as when you're very far from the centers. Some banks. There's a co-op bank here in Quebec, which is called Desjardins. They give up to $20,000 to their clients when they install geothermal systems. Normally, they get this $20,000 because it's depending on the cost of the project, and when you're doing commercial projects, it's very rare that it's not expensive. There are many other programs, but it's very located in small areas like in Montreal, Quebec, and the South Shore of Montreal. I have some examples here that will give you a good view of the grants that we have. Here is a project we did last year. It's a detox center, North Shore of Montreal. The system cost $190,000, and they got a grant of $141,000. There's another here. It's an house community organization on the island of Montreal. The project was $350,000, and they got a grant of $216,000. And yeah, here is an automated beam manufacturing plant on the North Shore of Montreal. The project was $750,000, and the grant was close to $500,000. Transition Énergétique Québec gave like $250,000 just because they didn't use propane, and Hydro-Québec gave $234,000. And the last example here is a warehouse in Sherbrooke. The value of the project was $160,000, and they got a grant of almost $120,000. Transition gave $65,000, and Hydro-Québec $54,000. Well, this is it. I'll let the next speaker to present his thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. On to Christine.
Thank you, Christine. I'm sorry, I didn't know it was you.
That's okay. Hello, everybody. Thanks for having us. I'm Christine. I'm the Executive Director for the New York Geothermal Energy Organization. We appreciate IGSHPA giving the states and provinces an opportunity to talk about the programs that we're doing. And most importantly, for the IGSHPA members and our members that are here, the intention is for you all to see what's happening in the states and provinces around you, so that if you don't have programs, you can lean on these programs and us to help you advocate in your communities for programs that would be beneficial to you and to growing ground source heat pumps across the country and the world. The idea of this came from the ACT Committee, which is a subgroup of IGSHPA, the Advocacy Communication Task Force, of which Chad, Jeremiah, and I sit on. And again, our goal there is to chat about things that are happening in the industry and how we can help each other, again, to advocate and grow geothermal and ground source heat pumps, not just in New York, but across the world. Unlike my colleagues, I'm not the expert of geothermal. I'm pretty new to the industry. So I do have a couple of my NY-GEO members and board members on the call, so they'll jump in and correct me if I misstep or say something incorrectly. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the New York State tax credit, New York State Clean Heat program, and then New York State Clean Heat contractors. The presentation I'm going to give is kind of borrowed from one that we did recently at the Building Performance Contractors Association conference. Most of the slides were put together by Ari Totko, who is the Clean Heat Program Manager for National Grid. And then there's some slides in here from Aztec, from Chris Winkler and Jeff Hoffer, who did one on studies of residential retrofits and how the incentive programs help them. So New York State tax credits, we have automatic New York State tax credit up to $5,000, 25% of your qualified geothermal energy system. Right now, we have legislation on the books to increase that to $10,000. Yesterday, it made it to the budget committee, so we're hopeful that it will make it into this year's budget. And there's some language there that will talk about that, but we're very excited about that. This is something that NY-GEO has been working on for quite a long time. Bill Nowak, who used to be in my position and is now a board member, has worked diligently on this, and so we're very hopeful that it will pass. And then with that, with the low to moderate income folks, that if they don't have that tax debt, then it would become refundable, which is terrific. So what is Clean Heat? Clean Heat is a partnership with NYSERDA and the New York State utilities. And each utility puts together their own program, presents it, gets it approved, and then they offer that to the customers within their utility. So as we go through this, I'm not going to go into each of the utilities in depth, but it'll just show some of the diversity and some of the similarities of what they're offering. Within the Clean Heat community, each of the utilities has representatives that help, and they're across the state. So New York State is actually quite a big state. And so we have quite a few people helping to advance geothermal and the Clean Heat initiative. These are their contacts in case you want to talk to any of them. Then there is an intake tool for both the consumer, the buyer, and the contractor. So this is an example of National Grid that the contractor rewards would be. So for a full load ground source heat pump, they can get up to $2,500. Occasionally they'll come out with these specials. So most of the utilities launched this earlier this year, at the beginning of the year, limited time incentive just for geothermal, which is very exciting to us that they're recognizing the importance of geothermal. So projects, the rate has increased up to $3,000. And then what they've additionally done is it's an additional incentive for the customer, but also for the contractor, which is very important that the contractor will see the benefit of that and hopefully recommend more often geothermal. And here's an idea of the incentive here. So geothermal, the other thing I really like about it is that our incentives are higher than that of our air source friends. They also have a 25% bonus for gas constrained areas in these zip codes. So it's a 25% kicker. And then they added an additional set of zip codes that would be eligible for this program. Central Hudson is another one, again, highlighting the same thing, offering this additional bonus program. Our friends at Orange and Rockland are doing the same thing. Con Ed is a little bit different. So the Con Ed territory, rather than base it on all those acronyms that I still don't understand, they do a flat dollar amount. So up to $25,000 for non-disadvantaged communities and up to $35,000 for disadvantaged communities. They've added their incentive in the same time frame so that you can get, a single family can get up to 35,000. Excuse me, yeah, 35,000 in their program for the disadvantaged communities and $30,000 for the non-disadvantaged communities. So again, very exciting. So participating contractors, there's a calculator. I was going to try and show this to you, but it's not going to work. But the contractors can answer all of these questions and put in the dollar amount, and then gives them an estimated the incentives. And on this scenario that Ari did at the BPCA conference, the total incentives were pretty huge, so that the customer ended up paying just about half, under half of what the estimated project cost would be. This is a scenario that Aztec did for us at the same conference. So this is a scenario of a house in Schenectady. So the first is what was actually put into the house. And then there's two other scenarios. If they were to make some adjustments, this system would work in the house with whichever they did. So this is kind of like buying a car. So if you want, the basic model, if you want power steering and power windows, and if you want all the bells and whistles here. So you can see the base prices, the utility rebate doesn't change. the customer owes the contractor, and then the state incentives, federal, et cetera, for the net income or the net cost of the system. This was really important at the conference that we did for the contractors because they were able to see something that we always try and overcome, is that geothermal is very expensive. It is more expensive, but at the end of the day, it's better for the building and it's better for our environment. Like the programs that you heard from others, there is a process to become a clean heat contractor. So for a ground source heat pump installer, there is an application process, but like others, they have to have the accredited installer program offered through ICHPA. So we work hard here in New York to ensure that we can increase the number of accredited installers. And this will give you an example why. So in New York State, there are 120 accredited installers, 4 trainers, 9 certified geothermal inspectors, 5 residential designers, and 4 geo-exchange designers. The installs of ground source heat pumps in New York State, these are clean heat reports. So these are each of the utilities on the bottom here. And the number of systems that they put in, not the number of heat pumps, but the number of systems that they put in, 21 to 23. We'll have 24 here shortly. And you can see that in some areas they've gone up, and then in some areas they've gone down. These are the installs collective of the utilities together. These are some goals that we have to try and increase the number of ground source heat pump installers that we have in New York State. We'll go back one. Whoop. Well, I messed up on that one. So essentially with sorry, technology is not my friend today. So with the installers in New York State, there are about 970-ish accredited installers in New York State for clean heat. Of those, there's only about 97 that are ground source heat pump certified to do geothermal. NY-GEO submitted the path grant that the Department of Energy just put out to increase and be able to increase those number so that we can take this ICHPA training and offer it to more contractors to be able to do geothermal in New York State. So I do want to go back to the very last slide. There you go. Again, our programs are pretty similar to what the others are doing in the states and provinces. I think it's very important that, again, if you don't have a program in your community, reach out to those of us that are on the call or Jeff and his team to help guide in that process, offer suggestions, provide you with language from the bills that we passed in New York and other places to help your legislators make the right decisions. So thank you, everybody, and let's go Geo. And then one final plug, April is International Geothermal Month. I'm sorry, Chad and Kevin, we're getting a new logo with the word international added there. But one of the things that we ask as the ACT committee is testimonials and imagery of your projects so that we can promote them on social media and get the word out that, really ground source heat pump geothermal is the way to go. So thanks, Jeff. Thanks, ICHPA team, for having us.
Thank you, Christine, Kevin, Chad, Jeremiah. Great presentations. And I think it gives everybody some ideas of what maybe their local state or province can do to help move this forward. We learn from each other for sure. I'm looking at the chat and in the Q&A for questions. Looks like we do have a question from Chad. Is there a heat pump sizing calculator that any of the states or federal programs have available that's required for program eligibility? In Ontario, there's one for air source heat pumps that's required, but not currently a tool for ground source heat pumps. Any of the panelists want to chime in on that?
I'm not aware of any specific program out there. I mean, are you talking a sizing calculator? Is that what you said on that?
Yeah,
Yes.
there's the air source heat pump. In order for them to qualify in Canada here for different programs, there's like a sizing tool that you would use that the federal government has put together.
Yeah.
But there's nothing really available for ground source heat pumps. So I just wanted to, it's something that we've been talking about recently, and I just wanted to kind of throw that out and see if there's anything in the US that you guys are using or that's available that we could potentially piggyback off of or use as a template at all. So I was just kind of throwing that out there.
There is something that GeoExchange and IGSHPA is working on with some of the states. It's a GREC calculator, Geothermal Renewable Energy Credit Calculator. It's not complete yet. It's more for operating costs and sizing, but I anticipate with some of these rebate programs that there would be some requirements, and we're hoping to push for sizing requirements based upon the binational ANSI CSA IGSHPA C448 standard. It does have that pretty good minimum requirements outlined for both Canada and the US in the standard. And if they were to refer to that standard that gives them a minimum requirement, I think a calculator would be a nice fit as well. But right now, as far as I'm aware, maybe Jeremiah, you've heard some others, it's mostly operating costs.
Yeah, no, that's I think what's getting used a lot. I mean, most of the programs around in the utilities that I deal with, they have different requirements, and they leave it up to the contractors for the most part. So having something standardized would actually be nice that everybody could utilize.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not aware of anything besides what Jeff's talking about.
Okay, very good. Looking for other questions here. I don't see any right now, so while we're waiting, we still have about 7 minutes. I came up with some questions just in case we were waiting. One question I have is for Christine. New York is really leading the U.S. when it comes to promotion of ground source heat pump technology. Obviously, this has come about over time. Is there any history you can share or advice you can give other geothermal heat pump associations who are looking to emulate New York's success?
Yes and no. So I'm pretty new still to the organization. We started in 2014. John Chavacco is on the call and has been with the group since they started. But I will say from a state trade association it really is all about the board, and having a hardworking board and a board that is committed to driving the mission and the statement and the advocacy work that goes into it. And that's honestly, probably the biggest part of it. NY-GEO is an amazing partner. I focus mostly on the residential programs that I just presented. They have a ton of other programs, and one of them is going to be presented at IGSHPA, PON 5614, which is a large building initiative specific to geothermal that Sue Doherty from NY-GEO will be presenting, and I'm confident will be at our conference too in April. But the advocacy work is very important. We also partner pretty closely with our other NGO groups that are advocating for electrification and decarbonization. So like the New York Heat Act, which is about making everything all electric and decarbonizing, and there's a lot of components to it. It's not about geothermal, but it's about the process of electrification and decarbonization. So geothermal plays a very important and significant role with that. The same thing with the Utility Thermal Energy Networks, the UTENGA, that is a Public Service Commission directive about taking communities and connecting them with their thermal energy. So I think it starts with advocacy, and then it starts with committed individuals that are willing to put in the time needed to advocate to advance what it is that we're all trying to do.
Thank you, Christine.
Jeff, can I add something to that just real quick?
Absolutely.
I just want to add that, and it's something we've been doing more of, at least since I've been with GeoExchange, is the collaboration between organizations. We put together that ACT group, and that's really bringing together the different geo associations from Canada, from around the US, the different states that have them, and it's real important to have that collaboration because there's no sense in everybody having to reinvent the wheel, right? So we've got some great examples from different regions, different areas, and all you have to do is take those and adapt those strategies to your location. And it can really accelerate your programs in getting them off the ground. So I just want to reiterate that, reach out to different groups, whether it's with utilities or your state geo associations, whomever it may be, Geo Exchange, IGSHPA, participate too. That's the other thing. We need participation and support, and we're doing more of that, and we're seeing a lot more results, I feel, at least in the last couple of years.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Yeah, Geo Exchange and IGSHPA, we're thrilled to work together with the state and provincial associations. So whatever we can do to help, don't hesitate to reach out. We do have a question here in chat. Mike asks about incentive programs in Manitoba. We talked about Ontario and Quebec. Does anybody have any updates on programs that might be happening in Manitoba?
I can answer that. There's nothing new that I'm aware of right now, but in Manitoba, there is the Manitoba Geothermal Energy Association as well. I'll just throw that in the chat here. So it's mgea.ca. So I would highly advise Mike, if you have a chance, just jump on that website and you can probably connect directly with the association there. And I'm sure they'll have answers to that question for sure.
Okay, great. Well, good timing. We have about 2 minutes to spare. So thank you so much, panelists, for joining us. Thank you for everyone who's joined the webinar today. And any parting thoughts from any of the panelists before we wish everyone a happy weekend?
Of course. So don't forget the IGSHPA conference coming up in March. The NY-GEO conference will be April 22nd, 23rd, and 24th in Saratoga Springs. The 22nd, we will have pre-conference activities with a drilling demonstration, which is coming along. It's going to be really, really cool, along with 4 geothermal site tour options, and then our usual 2-day conference. And then Chad has his in May. Go, Chad.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah, ours is coming up May 21st and 22nd. And although I won't be at the NY-GEO conference, we are going to have certainly some representation from our company down at NY-GEO for sure, supporting Christine and their team as well at that event.
Yeah.
Great. It's important to support the organizations.
Yeah, and I think it's important for a diverse group of people to attend, because NY-GEO's conference isn't just about New York, it's about geothermal. Of course, it does touch that. The same thing with Chad's in Ontario, Canada, and then what Jeff, your team is doing on a international level. So supporting from the folks that sponsor an exhibit. If you attend, make sure you say hello, learn about their products and what they do, because without them, we cannot have geothermal. So
Indeed.
Thanks to all those sponsors and exhibitors.
Couldn't have said it better, Christine. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, panelists. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a great weekend. The recording should be online in a couple of days. So let us know if we can be of any help. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, IGSHPA.
Thank you, everyone.